Last week, I gave you guys my top 10 players heading into the 2025 season. I'll read them off here. At 10, I had Dallas Wilson. Looking back, I had Dallas Wilson at 10. I had Pup Howard at 9. Trey Wilson at 8. Austin Barber at 7. Devin Moore at 6. I had a tie of Jaden Ball and Jacoby Jackson at 5. Tyreek Sapp 4. DJ Lagway 3. Jake Slaughter 2. And Caleb Banks 1. I didn't have J. Michael Sturdivant, but I had Trey Wilson and Dallas Wilson. And we just talked up J. Michael Sturdivant. It really just shows how good that receiver room can be. But I just listed off mine. Who do you have at number 10?
I also have Dallas Wilson at number 10, actually. That was kind of my wild card pick. Kind of in spite of what I just said, I think Florida has other guys, and I don't know if he's going to get the I don't necessarily think Dallas is going to have the stats this year. I think he could have the memorable plays, though. I could see him being a guy that makes some really big plays for this team. And that's kind of why I put him there, even over a couple other receivers. I don't have Sturdivant in my top 10, and I probably should, because I think if I'm going to have Dallas Wilson, because I think Sturdivant, if I had to bet, probably finishes with better numbers than Dallas Wilson. But it's hard to ignore the talent there.
I think you also look. Oh,
no, that was it.
I think you also look at last season, all the freshman wide receivers that just went insane, like Jeremiah Smith, who, I think every Gator fan knew that Jeremiah Smith was going to have one of the best freshman seasons and be one of the best receivers in college football. I knew it. I bet you probably knew it as well. Number one player in the country. Ryan Williams, Cam Coleman, Brian Wesco, Nick Marsh, so many great freshman wide receivers. And now Dallas Wilson had that amazing spring game. It feels like there might be a little bit of pressure on him to actually have a really good season. Whether you look at that from a numbers-wise or from an impact-wise, could be the same thing, could not be, does make a difference.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. So moving on to number 9, this one was, I'll just say this now because I have kind of an honorable mention here. This was kind of a back and forth because I wanted to put Dallas Wilson at 10. I actually did not put Devin Moore in my top 10, which is kind of bold. I think it's interesting with Devin Moore because, and I'll get into who I actually put it on in a second. I just want to say this real quick because I think Devin Moore, we always talk about, well, it's just a question if he's healthy, because I think we've both seen enough to feel pretty good about where he's at. I just feel like we haven't necessarily gotten the sample size to know whether he's a good player or a dominant one when he's healthy. And I think obviously the health concerns too. So I've got a defensive player here. I've actually got George Gums, a guy that I think
he was an honorable mention for me.
Yeah. A lot of good players kind of up front on this defense. I'm not sure he's going to stand out among all of them. Thank you, Kenny. Yes, please hit that like button and subscribe. But I think, Gums only had 5 sacks last year. I wouldn't be surprised if that number goes up quite a bit. I kind of see him as being this team's pretty clear primary pass rushing option. And I think he's got the versatility to kind of do more than that, because we've seen him play decently well off the ball at times. He can do a decent amount of things for you, I think. And he just seems to be a guy that puts himself in position to make plays. And I think that's such a big trait for that role. So I've got him at number 9, and I think there's some projection going on there, but I really see him in his second season playing at the highest level in college football. I think he could really take a significant leap.
Yeah, I think something about George Gums is, you say he's going to be the primary pass rusher. I think Tyreek Sapp, who had 7 sacks last year, he's going to benefit from having a guy like Tyreek Sapp on the other side and Caleb Banks, who are guys that are NFL level player or high level possible NFL level players. And teams are going to focus more on guarding them to protect their QB in the run game, that they might just forget a little bit about George Gums. I think Gums could have a really good statistical season while not being as good as a Sapp or Banks.
Yeah, I guess what I'm kind of getting at with that is I think Sapp is kind of a more versatile defensive lineman. Sapp can play against the run too, whereas I think Gums, you're kind of going to almost use him in a similar role to almost, I think, of how LSU used Harold Perkins in his first year.
Really?
Just send him and let him go. And that's kind of where I'm at with him. And that's why I think he's so exciting to me.
I like it.
Yeah. And then, so at number 8, I've got Trey Wilson. I'll be honest, like I go back and forth on how productive a season I think Trey Wilson's poised
We
to
both
have.
did.
Was
We
do
both
we both
had Trey Wilson at 8. Yep.
on it? Yeah, there were a couple other similar. We were different. We had some major differences, but yeah, there was a couple others we had pretty similar. I think Trey, like I said, I go back and forth on whether I think Trey is going to have a huge statistically productive year, just because of the other guys in the room, obviously his injury concerns, and I feel like Florida hasn't quite yet figured out how best to use him, but the talent is undeniable, and I think I'll ultimately defer to the fact that I have a lot of confidence in DJ Lagway, and I think they're going to find ways to use him. So if he's on the field, I think he will play as a top 10 player on this team. Like, we talk about guys who maybe, maybe you see a little less of in the starting lineup. If someone like Dallas emerges, maybe you see less Sturdivant, maybe you see less Mizell. I think there will be a role for Trey Wilson regardless if he's healthy.
Yeah, I see that. I mean, so electric as a playmaker that you got to give him the ball. He's going to get his touches. I think of the receivers, he's going to have the most yards because he's going to get rushing and receiving yards. If I'm having to bet who leads the receivers in yards, I'm putting my money on Trey Wilson.
Yeah, I think that's probably a pretty safe bet, especially because we've seen, in spite of, I think, concerns about how he can develop as a full-on receiver, we've seen him be productive as a downfield threat. He's a guy that can get behind a secondary and make some plays. And now that you've got a guy in DJ Lagway with the arm to make those throws on a regular basis, I think he could pretty easily, you could pretty easily argue he could benefit from DJ Lagway being in there and healthy more than anyone else in this receiving core.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then so at number 7, I have Jacoby Jackson, who you also had. You had a little higher, actually, I think, but I have him in my top 10 as well. To me, and I'll get into. Obviously, I do have Jaden Ball on here too. And I'll just say now I'll get into it. I have Jaden Ball at 6, so we'll talk about them together.
Okay, how about we do this?
Yeah,
Devin Moore at 10, Dallas Wilson 9, Trey Wilson or George Gump's 8, Trey Wilson 7, and then 6, Jacoby and Ball.
Yeah, there we go.
Is that cheating? Because I had them both at 5.
I don't think it's. I think maybe it's a little bit cheating in the sense that I do think Bob brings. I think what Bob brings to the table is a little bit higher ceiling. But I will say, I do think though that we've seen the way Billy uses running backs. Like this is not going to be, I don't think, a running game where one guy is like super dominant in the carry distribution. I think it's probably going to end up being fairly even. And Jacoby Jackson was as efficient as anyone last year with his carries. So I really do think you'll see both of them have really productive seasons. And behind this offensive line and with their talent, I think it's going to be kind of like easy mode for them this year, at least against all but the best of the best front sevens. So I think they're both going to have really nice years. I think they're both probably going to have about it, probably maybe even more productive years than they had last year. And they both went over 500, I believe. Yeah, they did. So, I think, you'll see at least one of them, I think, push for 1,000 this year. And the other, I don't think it'll be crazy far behind. So, I think I kind of do, even though I do think Baugh gives you the higher ceiling, and I would bet Baugh's the one that ends up with more carries and more yards. I think that you can kind of talk about them as a unit in the sense that they are going to both together spearhead this run game, which I think could be one of, if not the best in the SEC.
Yeah, I think a little bit I saw from last season. I think I saw more consistency out of Jacoby Jackson. I think you saw more home run threat from Jaden Ball, which is why I agree Ball has that ceiling, has a higher ceiling. But I think last year and I think going to this year, I think they're going to be pretty equal from what they can do on a yards per carry. I think Ball's going to get more of the. No, they'll probably get about equal amount of red zone carries. Maybe even Treyon Webb or KD Daniels steps in there. But yeah, maybe I cheated a bit having them both together, but I wanted to get more players on my list.
Yeah, and I'll put it this way. I think that you're going to see a more even split in terms of carries than you saw from Montrell and Trevor Etienne. I think this is going to be an even more 50-50 sort of endeavor this year.
Mm-hmm.
I really think it's going to be a system of who has the most, energy and who has the hot hand. And I think that could be
Yeah.
either of them on any given day. And I think that's just a huge boon for the Gators overall. So, yeah, I mean, I think I could kind of see either way in terms of who gets the most production. I probably lean towards Baugh, but I think either way, they're both going to be really productive if they're playing for the entire season.
Absolutely. All right, who do you have at number 5?
Number 5, I got Austin Barber, who,
Okay.
I mean, I think we'll see continue to improve. I think emerged as one of the better tackles in the country this past season. I mean, I think a guy who could maybe be elite this year. I think time will tell on that one, but I think really reliable, and you know, kind of helming the blind side on an offensive line that I don't think it has any glaring weaknesses. I mean, maybe a couple question marks, but I don't know if there's really like a point on this offensive line where I'm like, that looks like the weak link on the chain right there. So
Yep.
I think to me, Barber, you know, as much as, you know, probably all but one other player on this offensive line is going to be really key to what we're going to see this year.
Yeah, I'm wondering who that top 4 is. You know, there's 4 players missing that I had on my list in my top 4. So I wonder if we'll see them here.
Yeah, there's a decent chance we will. Although I will tell you a little bit different order wise. So at
All right,
4,
who do you
I've
have at
got
number 4?
I got Tyreek Sapp at number 4.
I
Like you
mean,
said, I mean, I
that's
think
where I had
pretty
him.
clearly, I think pretty clearly the best, you know, the best defensive end on this team, defensive end / Jack, you know, or is it Jack
F.
the term they use? Oh, F. Okay, sorry.
Gums
F.
will be at Jack.
Oh, okay. Yeah. The terminology.
That's more of a defensive end, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I guess no, I'm sorry. I'm like saying if you like the edge defensive end / edges.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
I think
gotcha.
he's the best within that group. So, yeah, I mean, like you said, 7 sacks last year, productive guy, huge to get him back this year. A guy that like is getting a lot, like more NFL hype than I even realized. You know, has decent odds to be the first overall pick in the draft next year. I'm not sure I see him having that kind of season. He does. He's like has like the 8th best odds or something crazy like that. He's like there. I mean, maybe it's like 10th or something, but it's like way higher than you would expect. But unless things have changed, but yeah. I mean, so I think you'll see him take a big step this year, I would say. And I mean, I think we'll be a centerpiece of the front 7. I mean, I'll just go ahead and say I've got Caleb Banks at number 3. And while I have Banks higher because I think Banks is better relative to his position, I think Sapp, you could argue, will be the more like game-breaking, disruptive player.
See, I had Banks at 1. So, I mean, someone I'm friends with who does scouting, he has Caleb Banks as a top 10 player in the 2026 draft. His disruption on the inside, I think, is going to be phenomenal. His run stuffing ability is going to be top tier. I think you're going to see a little bit more higher of a ceiling from Banks than Sapp, and Sapp has a really high ceiling as well, which just goes to show how good this D line can be. But yeah, so you said you have Banks at 3.
Yeah, I do have Banks at 3. And I think to me, the thing with Banks, I mean, like I totally agree. I think he's poised to have a great year, poised to be really a force inside, create havoc in a way that not many defensive tackles can. You know, can be a force in the run game. I think one question I have, and it's not really about him, but more about what's around him, is can someone emerge as a reliable nose? Because, you know, whether it's Jamari Lyons, whether it's Mekhi Barrow or someone else like a Stephon Shivers or something like that, I don't know. But, you know, I think whether teams can kind of focus on Caleb Banks, try to double team him, I think that is going to be the question. And if there's someone opposite him on the interior that takes that away, it's good night because he's that good. So, but I mean, regardless, like I don't have him in number 1, but I am really, really high on him. And I think you'd be pretty hard pressed to say he's not the most trustworthy player on this defense right now.
Yeah, I'm interested to see who you're going to put at 2 and 1 because I don't think you're going to put Lagway at 1. But I feel like it's weird to put a center at 1.
Yeah, so I actually went with my heart on this one and not what I probably should have. Yeah, I have Jake Slaughter at 2 and DJ Lagway at 1, which, and I'll even be honest, like that's probably wrong. Like I probably shouldn't do that. Jake Slaughter is relative to his position the best player on this team, and it's probably not even that close. I'm not sure there's even someone else who's close to as good relative to their position as Jake Slaughter is.
I mean,
guy who
Caleb
like
Banks could be.
I mean, yeah, but I'm saying like Jake Slaughter is like the best center in the country. Like it's pretty indisputable.
That's true.
I'm not sure that's true for Banks. So even though he's definitely
Yeah.
up there. I mean, Slaughter's a guy that's good enough. Like you could see him be like a first round center. Like that wouldn't absolutely stun me if that happened, which is very uncommon. He's that good. You know, obviously it's a center, so it's not going to be like the most impactful, but I also feel like that's a position where people really underrate how important it is to have a good one. And I think he's going to be really key, especially if this team is going to run as well as we expect it to between the tackles. That's going to be Jake Slaughter's going to be a big part of that. And obviously I went with DJ Lagway at 1. And again, you know, maybe I'm suffering from the thing I've kind of warned against, which is putting too much on a young quarterback who's, while really impressive, still developing, still trying to get better. But he's just clearly got that talent, and I'll take the coaches at their word that he is getting close to 100%, should be a full go for OTAs this summer. And if that's the case, and you've got a healthy DJ Lagway, which we really didn't see after the Kentucky game last year.
Yeah, after
fully healthy,
first,
and the first drive or two against Georgia.
Yeah. 4 drives.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. It was that. Oh, he really was on 4. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I just, you know, we'll see what Billy's offense looks like. I mean, we've said he wants to run the ball, but I think he might have a quarterback so good that he doesn't really have a choice but to let him air it out, because with these receivers, this running back and an offensive line that should give you the time to let these plays develop, like this could be a really, really explosive passing offense. You know, if the play design's there, which I'll be honest, I have my skepticism and my concerns about the play design in the passing game, but you've got the pieces to make it work if you've got it. So, you know, that I've got DJ Lagway 1. I think regardless of whether we agree with him being 1 at the end of the season, I think he will emerge as one of the best quarterbacks in the country this year. And I mean, perhaps the best in the SEC.
What am I rating?
I genuinely don't know. We're not going to pin it. I don't know.
All right. Yeah, but you have Lagway at 1. I can't blame you. Lagway has top 10 odds to win the Heisman. QB is just the most impactful position on the field.
Mm-hmm.
If we make the playoffs, everyone's going to be talking about DJ Lagway and then the other guys on defense and offense. So I can't blame you for having Lagway at 1. But and Slaughter at 2. I had Slaughter at 2 as well. I had Lagway at 3 because I was like, who are the actual best players? I think if we could have done a different list, most impactful players.
Yeah.
I think that's something that could have looked a lot different. Maybe have never mind. It'd be pretty similar, but you know, Lagway probably could be at one of my impactful players on that list. But I mean, a lot of similarities. I'll break down our list here. So we both had Dallas Wilson at 10. You had George Gums at 9. I had Pup Howard. We both had Trey Wilson at 8. You had Jacoby Jackson 7. I had Austin Barber. You had Jaden Ball at 6. I had Devin Moore. I'm probably a bit too high. I mean, if Devin Moore stays healthy, he could be like right there after Tyreek Sapp and those 4 that we all clearly have separate compared to everyone else.
Yeah.
But, you know, health's something you have to take into a factor.
Yeah, for sure.
At 5, I have the entire running back room. You have Austin Barber. We both had Sapp at 4. I had Lagway at 3. You had Caleb Banks. We both had Slaughter at 2. You had Lagway at 1. I had Caleb Banks at 1. Interesting stuff. Maybe later on before the season, we'll do most impactful players. You know, maybe we'll get a bit clearer on the depth chart. Maybe Dallas Wilson is starting, which could sure up putting him in the top 10. Maybe there's someone else. You know, maybe Miles Graham has a really good fall camp, and he jumps onto this list. But you never know.
And I will say that's part of the reason I didn't include Pup in my top 10, even though I do really like Pup. I just kind of wonder if we're going to see another linebacker just kind of become a standout this year, just because of the talent Florida has there.
Again, I think you have to take consideration stats versus like impact and stuff like
Mhm.
that. Because I think you're going to start Gums and Graham. Jaden Robinson is going to be like that sixth man in the linebacker room.
Yeah.
Jaden Robinson would start for 99% of D1 football teams. I mean, including other SEC teams and high-level Big Ten teams. Like, Jaden Robinson's really good, and he's probably going to be coming off the bench for us. And you still have Aaron Childs. You have your freshman Ty Jackson as well, who Napier's really high on. So I can understand if you're worried about his stats, but I think as an actual player, Putt Howard's going to be a really good leader for us. And he's a really good player as well. So that's why I went and put him at 9.